Howdy folks, I am Ruzkiel, and welcome back to Let's Play Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair. In the last episode, we started Chapter 6 of... Well, we started Chapter 6, which was something along the lines of Goodbye Academy of Despair. We were told by Monokuma that we are now in Hope's Peak Academy, and we need to figure out... We need to investigate the area so that we can prepare for our graduation exam and determine whether we actually want to leave the island, or the school, or whatever the hell he said we were about to leave, or go out into the real world. So, things have been a little... Oh, we also read this book here, which was the history of the school, and mostly about the reserve department. So, once we leave here, I have no idea where we're going to end up, because the last time we moved around, we ended up on a completely different floor. Oh, we are on the 5th floor this time around. I'm a little surprised. So that means now what? Because everything else was grayed out before. Where do I go? What do I do? Kazuichi is here. Oh, in between, I also looked up stuff about the pet, so I should probably do that now that I'm thinking about it. Hold, please.
Bye.
And the back. So, Kaz, what have you got? This hallway, it's kinda creepy. I can't go to places that I should be able to go to. It's like some rules being enforced for no reason. It's like there's an invisible wall or something. Well, why do you sound almost happy or pleased about that? Wait, this door looks open now. This wasn't open before. Classroom 5A. Which one? That's probably just a regular old classroom, isn't it? Yeah. I guess that's our next clue. Be on the lookout for Monokumas. Do I see any? I don't think I see any. And wouldn't it suck to get all this way just to miss the last one? Somewhere amongst all this stuff. Hiding in the leopard print walls. Weird. Anyway, here's the main thing. A book. So what's this book? This is another manga. It's lying on top of the desk. This one is Manga for Morons. The Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy, huh? Wasn't the Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy mentioned in the other manga too? It's why Hope's Peak Academy went bankrupt, and it was the trigger for the biggest, most tragic, most awful event in human history. If I read this manga, will I be able to learn a little more about the incident? Well, let's see and find out. I took the manga from the desk and started flipping through the pages to see what I could learn about the event known as the Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Excuse me one second. The story made heavy use of outdated, stylized drawings depicting character-solving mysteries. What's written here is, as the name suggests, the Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy occurred at Hope's Peak Academy. The key player in that event was a student named Izuru Kamakura. Wait. Oh my god. Sometimes it's nice to have, not a second pair of eyes, but, it's nice to be watching someone go through the same thing as I am right now, just behind me. Because isn't that the founder? Izuru was a genius known as a symbol of hope. Hope's Peak Academy used all their resources to develop him. Supposedly, Izuru was a genius among geniuses, and possessed various talents. Wielding a superior talent for the hope of mankind, the Academy referred to Izuru as the Ultimate Hope. To protect such rare talent, the Academy completely concealed all evidence of Izuru's origins and identity. Because of that, most of the students at the Academy were completely unaware of Izuru's existence. But Izuru, who was known as the symbol of hope, was responsible for a horrible incident. 13 students of Hope's Peak Academy's Student Council, among the Academy's best and brightest, were brutally murdered by Izuru. However, the incident did not end there. The Academy tried to protect Izuru's superior talent and concealed the incident as though it never happened. However, a certain student began working in secret to use that incident to their advantage. That student uncovered what the Academy did, and by making that knowledge public, It stoked the fires of Reserve Corps students who had long been dissatisfied with how they'd been treated. And the uprising began. And that heralded Hope's Peak Academy's destruction. This is the entirety of the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Eventually, that incident would lead to that horrifying, devastating incident. The incident that would be known as the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. Works cited, Danganronpa/0. Okay. With a heavy sigh, I close the manga. Am I supposed to believe this? There's no way 13 people were killed at Hope's Peak Academy.
What irony! For a genius known as the ultimate hope to cause such a gruesome incident! A talent like that is too regal for society. It's like trying to buy juice with a bar of gold. Ho 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 ho! You should be lucky that you're incompetent!
Damn it, he always has to lead up to something offensive. He seriously pisses me off. But ultimate hope. Nagito mentioned that before too, but it looks like it means something completely different here. What Nagito said was the true meaning of hope, but for Izuru, hope simply means talent. More importantly, a genius who possesses various talents. I wish they had given me one of those talents so I didn't have to be in the reserve department. That's right, the reserve department! Here, it said the Reserve Corps students in the reserve department began an uprising. Then, what about me? Was I a participant too? No, that's not possible. There's no way. I have no reason to do something like that. That is interesting and unforeseen. I had no idea something like that was going to be a thing. Anyway, I've learned about the tragedy of the Academy, but the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history is a far worse incident, right? What kind of incident was it? And who's the other student that isn't Izuru? A certain student who secretly used the incident to their advantage. Who is that? This incident is really messed up, but all it's doing is raising more questions. The mysteries just keep piling up. Well then, one last quick look around just to make sure I didn't miss anything, but as far as I can tell, I haven't. So let's head on out and see if we go somewhere else entirely now. No, we're back on the 5th floor. Interesting. Okay, so that one's closed. Looks like Kaz is gone. Can't go down, so we gotta look around some more. There was one more room other than the dojo, but it's still grayed out, so we can't go there. So that just leaves this big ol' long hallway. This is probably the end. Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, I was about to say, wait, is it grayed out again? No, it's just the color palette. It's a biolab. Well, I see one thing that catches my eye, and it's probably not any evidence. What the hell is this room? It's freaking cold in here. It's like I'm in a freezer or something. If I just stand still, I might end up freezing to death. I should hurry up and investigate so I can get out of here. Hold it. Got a little Monokuma under the desk. Yeah, I didn't spend any coins. Because tarps. No, not because of tarps, but I didn't feel like buying anything. I had plenty of stuff, so I mean, there's probably nothing to it. It looks like a plastic tarp. Why is this left out like this? Clean up after yourselves, will you? You're ultimates, after all. Ultimate pigs. I've seen this in movies before. It's a refrigerator for preserving dead bodies. At least that's what it looks like. But that's not possible, right? Keeping dead bodies in a high school biolab isn't something you should joke about. It just feels so forced. This idea should have been cancelled during development or something. What am I thinking? Going back to that 4th wall. Okay, so I think that is mostly everything. Yeah, it looks like everything. So I guess we'll see what this is, which looks like it's going to be the biggest event. Okay, so another manga lying here. The title is Manga for Morons, the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. I knew it. The next one would obviously be about the incident. The biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history, huh? Just what was the incident really about? It might turn out to be something lame. I flipped through the pages of the manga and hoped that I was right. Give me 1 second. A story about creepily drawn characters who get involved in such horrifying incidents. An incident known as the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. Is this drawn so grotesquely because the incident itself is that grotesque? Anyway, the beginning of this creepy manga starts with this sentence. The tragedy of the Academy was simply the trigger. At first, the uprising by the Reserve Corps students that triggered the tragedy of the Academy was initially hoped to be resolved quickly, but the situation continued to escalate to dangerous extremes. The movement started spreading all over the internet and fostered a thriving online community. The community was not limited to students, and people of various races and nations began joining in. But the movement was not confined to the internet, and began spreading and eroding the real world. Wow, this feels startling. This feels startling like what's actually happening anymore. Ugh, gosh. The world sucks, man. When the movement started, it was indistinguishable from any other demonstration inspired by social unrest. But as it spread across the world, certain abnormalities soon came to light. By then it was too late. The ends and the means had vanished, and wanton destruction became their only goal. The strong butchered the weak. The weak killed the weakest among them. And soon, the weak formed factions to brutally murder the strong. As the violence and death continued to spread, the shock of their actions began to disappear, as if the era was regressing to more uncivilized times.
So uncivilized.
When senseless deaths were the norm. The media was oversaturated with deaths to the point where people would watch them while enjoying a meal. By the time the world realized what it had become, it was too late to stop what had happened. A feeling of immense despair began spreading and eventually engulfed the world. Acts of terrorism and coups d'etats began occurring around the world. A war waged in the name of despair. A war fought not for principles, religion, or personal gain. Just war. Pure war. And because of that, there was no way to resolve it. How could a movement started by high school students progress to such a hopeless scenario? The only explanation is the existence of a certain organization, devoted to a certain student who influenced Hope Speak Academy, a group called Ultimate Despair. Instead of using Hope Speak Academy's talents for the sake of mankind's hope, they used them for the sake of mankind's despair. Key members of society used their influence to brainwash the masses in order to spread despair. Tech-savvy computer programmers wrote software to spread despair. The powerful and influential created new values and morals to spread despair. And with this, they created the tragedy, the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. As long as ultimate despair exists, the despair engulfing the world will never end. The tragedy will never end. My heart was racing in my chest, but my body felt ice cold. Well, because you're standing in a freezer. And it wasn't because I was freezing in this room. Smartass. The biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. This is definitely all made up. I mean, if this is really true, then what's happening in the outside world? My family, my friends, the convenience store I frequent, the nearby bookstore, my favorite restaurant. What's happened to them?
Hey! Are you seriously yelling at a manga? How crazy are you?
Who would enjoy reading something like this?
Oh my! You don't like the manga? A high school student who doesn't like manga is like an office lady who doesn't like to eat candy.
Enough! What is this messed up manga?
I thought you'd obviously know about such a horrible event that destroyed the world, but for you not to remember that, such despair. That's the Future Foundation's fault, though. Thanks to them stealing your school memories. The incident that had happened during that period was completely removed from your brains.
This incident really happened and I actually forgot about it? There's no way that's possible.
How many times do I have to tell you? All the clues here are real. Please understand, I'm rooting for you. If you don't learn about the full extent of the outside world, you guys will suffer for it. I just want to help you guys so you can live well-adjusted lives in the outside world.
I see. So that's how it is. That's what he meant by what he said at the beginning.
Well, as the headmaster, I'm conflicted, you know. On one hand, I'm really happy that you're finally going to graduate. But on the other hand, I'm worried about whether you guys will be okay in the outside world. That's why I'm thinking about telling you what the outside world is like before you make a decision. Whether you want to leave Jabberwock Island or stay here.
He's trying to make us feel despair toward the outside world, so we'll want to stay on this island. But there's no way I'm going to do what he wants. Despair like that simply can't exist. The outside world should be filled with hope. Just like now. Perhaps... No, that's definitely it. The tragedy has been added to the truth bullets. Whether or not this incident really happened, what in the world is this ultimate despair group? If they're devoted to a certain student who guided Hope's Peak Academy to its destruction, are they connected to both the tragedy and the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy? Plus, that organization isn't just one person, but a group of people. But if they're known as Ultimate Despair, they're high school students, right? Well, if they were actually able to do it, then I guess that's why they were called Ultimates. Then, are the killings we're involved in connected to them as well? It's no use. I'm gonna freeze to death. I'm at my limit. I need to get out of here. Shivering, I ran out of the freezing room and into the next episode. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Farewell.